The alarm sirens screamed across Kolher Prime for the third day straight. Administrator Alara stood in the command center, watching her world die on a dozen screens at once. The creatures came from the sky in ships that looked like twisted metal bones. The Vreth, they called themselves. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want peace. They wanted bodies. Eastern District has fallen, her aide reported, voice shaking. They're herding people into the processing ships. Alara closed her eyes. Processing. Such a clean word for something so horrible. She'd seen the reports from other colonies. The Vreth took people apart, used them for food, for fuel, for things she couldn't bear to think about. Send another message to the Galactic Council, she ordered. Administrator, we've sent 17. Send another. Her aide nodded and turned away. They both knew it wouldn't matter. The Council had ignored every plea for help. Earth, the new world everyone whispered about, wasn't even allowed at the Council table. Too violent, they said. Too primitive. Too dangerous. Outside, the Vreth pushed closer. Their warriors moved like insects, quick and coordinated. They'd already taken half the colony. By tomorrow, there would be nothing left. Alara watched the defense forces make their last stand at the central plaza. Good people with hunting rifles and mining equipment, facing an enemy that crossed stars to find prey. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. They're breaking through the final barrier, someone shouted. Alara stood straight. If this was the end, she would face it standing. She activated her personal recorder, the one linked to the emergency beacon still broadcasting into empty space. This is Administrator Alara of Kolher Prime. If anyone receives this message, know that we begged for help. We followed every protocol. We trusted the Council to protect us. Her voice cracked. We thought someone would answer. We were wrong. We died hoping, and that might be the saddest part. She reached to turn off the recorder when the sky turned orange. At first, she thought the Vreth were bombing them. Then she saw the trails, hundreds of them, streaking down through the atmosphere like falling stars. They weren't bombs. They were pods. Metal capsules trailing fire, punching through the air so fast they screamed. The first pod hit the ground, between the Vreth forces and the retreating colonists. The impact shook the building. Then another hit. Another. Within seconds, hundreds of pods had formed a wall of steel between the monsters and the people. The pods cracked open with hissing steam. Soldiers emerged. Not Council peacekeepers in their white armor. These warriors wore black, angular suits that looked designed for one purpose: war. Their weapons were dark metal and sharp edges. Their movements were quick, precise, deadly. Who are they? Alara's aide whispered. On the main screen, one of the soldiers stood taller than the rest. He carried a rifle that looked too heavy for any species she knew. His helmet turned, scanning the battlefield with glowing red eyes. Firebase Hana, this is Reaper Squad. His voice came through on all frequencies, strong and clear. We have contact. Beginning extraction protocol. Those accents, Alara breathed. Those are humans. Impossible. Earth was quarantined. The Council had forbidden contact. These creatures from a death world, a planet so harsh it killed most visitors. They weren't supposed to be here, but they were. The human leader raised his weapon. All squads, engage. Show them why Earth doesn't leave people behind. What happened next would haunt Alara's dreams forever, not from horror, but from awe. The humans didn't take defensive positions. They didn't call for negotiations. They attacked. They charged forward into the Vreth lines with a fury that seemed insane. Their weapons roared not the clean pulse of energy guns, but loud, violent explosions that echoed across the city. Bullets, she realized. Primitive kinetic weapons that the Council had banned centuries ago as too barbaric. The Vreth stumbled back, confused. They were predators used to hunting prey. They'd never met prey that hunted back harder. A human soldier, her armor marked with symbols. Alara didn't recognize led a small team straight into the thickest Vreth formation. She moved like death itself, firing her weapon with one hand while throwing explosive charges with the other. When a Vreth warrior got too close, she drew a knife and actual blade and fought it hand to hand. "They're insane," the aide muttered. "No," Alara corrected, unable to look away. "They're effective." On the Eastern Front, a human sergeant held a position with only 12 soldiers against hundreds of Vreth. They should have been overrun in seconds. Instead, they built a wall of fire and fury that the Vreth couldn't cross. Every time the aliens tried to advance, the humans pushed them back with coordinated volleys and grenades. A younger human soldier, an engineer by the look of her equipment, rigged an entire city block with explosives. When the Vreth filled the streets, she detonated everything. The explosion lit up the night sky. The Vreth, for the first time in the battle, hesitated. The human leader's voice cut through the chaos. "They're breaking. Push them back to their ships. No mercy for those who prey on the helpless." Through the night, the battle raged. But it wasn't a battle anymore. It was a retreat. The Vreth, the unstoppable swarm that had devastated a dozen worlds, ran from humans. As dawn broke over Kolar Prime, the Vreth ships lifted off, limping toward orbit. They left behind their dead and their wounded. Scrambling to escape, the human leader stood in the center of the plaza, surrounded by his warriors. He removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face with dark eyes that had seen too much war. "Yoon," he spoke into his communicator. "Paint the targets." Above them, something in orbit responded. Streaks of light lanced down from space railgun rounds, moving at impossible speeds. They struck the Vreth flagship dead center. The ship broke apart in a flash that turned night into day. Alara walked out of the command center on shaking legs. Around her, Kalharians emerged from shelters, staring at the warriors who'd fallen from the sky to save them. The human leader turned to face her. His expression was tired but kind. "Administrator Alara, I presume?" he said. "Captain Taiyang, Earth Defense Forces. We got your messages. Sorry, we're late." Alara wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. "Late? You came at all." "The council? Forget the council," Taiyang said quietly. "Earth doesn't leave people to die. Not while we can do something about it." He looked up at the sky, where the Vreth ships were disappearing into the stars, running from the species they'd thought was too primitive to matter. "Welcome to humanity's galaxy," Taiyang said. "We're the ones who fall from the sky are the ones who answer." Lieutenant Nari had been fighting for 18 hours straight, and she'd never felt more alive. Her squad moved through the ruined streets of Kolher's eastern district, checking every building for survivors. Behind them, the sounds of battle were fading. Ahead, small groups of Vreth stragglers tried to reach their extraction points. They wouldn't make it. "Contact, 30 meters, her point man called out. Nari raised her fist. Her team froze, weapons ready. Through her helmet display, she counted 8 Vreth warriors attempting to herd a group of Kalharian civilians toward a side street. "Flank left and right," she ordered. "I want them caught in a crossfire. Go loud, scare them away from the civilians." Her team split without question. They trained together for 3 years, preparing for the day Earth would finally step onto the galactic stage. The Council could condemn them all they wanted. This saving lives, this was why they'd volunteered. The Vreth never saw them coming. Nari's rifle barked 3 times. The lead Vreth dropped. Her team opened up from both sides, bullets tearing through the aliens before they could react. The Vreth tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed for civilized warfare energy pulses that took time to charge and aim. Humans didn't fight civilized. In 15 seconds. It was over. The Vreth lay dead or dying. The Kalharian civilians huddled together, staring at their rescuers with wide eyes. Nari removed her helmet and smiled. "You're safe now. Head toward the central plaza. There's food and medical care there." An elderly Kalharian male approached her slowly. "You're from Earth?" "Yes, sir. They said your people were savages." Nari's smile turned sharp. They were half right. We are savage when someone threatens the innocent. Come on, let's get you to safety. Across the city, the battle was turning into a cleanup operation. Captain Taiyang coordinated 3 fronts from a makeshift command post, his display showing every squad's position in real time. "Sergeant Jiho, status?" He called out. The response came back with the sound of gunfire in the background. "Holding the bridge, Captain. Vreth keep trying to cross. We keep teaching them why that's a bad idea." Taiyang allowed himself a small smile. Jiho and his 12 soldiers had been holding the eastern bridge for 6 hours against overwhelming numbers. Any other species would have retreated. Humans dug in and made the enemy bleed for every meter. "Suji, how's the northern sector?" Taiyang asked. Corporal Suji's voice came through, slightly out of breath. "Rigged and ready, sir. Got about 300 Vreth moving through the kill zone now. Permission to send them to hell?" Taiyang checked his display. The northern sector was already lost, collapsed buildings and craters. But the Vreth were using it as a route to flank the civilian shelters. "Permission granted. Make it count." "Oh, I will." 5 seconds later, the northern sector lit up like a small sun. Suji had placed charges in every weak structure, every gas line, every ammunition depot the retreating Kalharians had left behind. When she hit the trigger, the entire district collapsed inward, taking the Vreth force with it. "Northern approach is closed, Captain," Suji reported cheerfully. "Also, I may have used more explosives than strictly necessary." "I noticed," Taiyang said dryly. "Good work." Regroup with Nari's squad. Administrator Alara watched the battle from the command center, barely believing what she was seeing. She'd studied warfare every civilized species had. Wars in the galactic community were careful, calculated affairs. Battles took weeks or months, fought with shields and energy weapons at long range. Casualties were kept minimal through strict engagement protocols. Humans ignored every rule. They fought up close, in the streets, with weapons that should have been obsolete 1,000 years ago. They used fire, explosives, and blades. They turned entire city blocks into death traps and ambush points, and they were winning. "How?" Her aide whispered. "Their technology isn't even advanced. Those are chemical projectile weapons. Their armor is just metal plates. How are they beating the Vreth?" Alara had been thinking about that question all night. She pulled up Earth's file, the classified one the Council. Thought she didn't have access to .Earth. Gravity, 1.2 standard. Atmosphere, oxygen-nitrogen mixed with toxic trace elements. Weather, violent and unpredictable. Native predators, numerous and deadly. Natural disasters, frequent. Disease environment, extreme. Every metric showed a world that should have killed any species trying to evolve there. Instead, humans had thrived. They'd fought their own planet every day of their existence and learned to fight everything else too. "They're not winning because of their technology," Alara said quietly. "They're winning because they refuse to lose." On the battlefield, Nari's squad had linked up with Jiho's team at the bridge. Together, they formed the final defensive line protecting the civilian shelters. The Vreth made one last push, throwing everything they had at the humans. It wasn't enough. Jiho stood on top of a wrecked vehicle, firing his heavy machine gun in controlled bursts. Every squeeze of the trigger sent 3 rounds downrange. Every burst found a target. He'd been in this position for so long his arms should have been shaking from exhaustion. They were steady as stone. "They're running!" someone shouted. Nari looked through her scope. The Vreth lines were breaking, soldiers scrambling back toward their landing zones. In the sky above, their ships were already lifting off, abandoning ground forces in their panic to escape. "Captain, they're retreating," Nari reported. "Confirmed," Taiyang replied. "All squads, pursue to the city limits but do not leave the perimeter. Let them run." "Yoon, are you in position?" High above the planet, Specialist Yoon sat in the weapons control station of Earth's orbital platform. She'd been tracking the Vreth fleet since they arrived, calculating firing solutions and waiting for the order. "Target lock acquired on flagship and 3 cruisers," she reported. "Railguns charged and ready. Fire at will." Taiyang ordered. Yoon pressed the trigger. The railguns had been Earth's answer to the Council's energy shields. Solid metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed, too fast for shields to stop, too powerful for armor to resist. Each round carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. 4 rounds. 4 ships. The Vreth flagship broke in half, its reactor going critical. The explosion consumed 2 nearby cruisers. The 4th ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the direct hit. On the ground, everyone, human and Kalharian alike, watched the sky light up. The remaining Vreth ships fled into faster-than-light travel, leaving their dead behind and running from a species they'd never expected to fight. Silence fell over Kolher Prime. Then someone cheered. A Kalharian civilian, then another, then dozens, then thousands. They poured out of shelters, crying and laughing and calling out thanks to the warriors. In black armor. Nar, I removed her helmet and breathed the alien air of Kolher Prime. It smelled like smoke, and fear and victory. Jiho dropped down from his position, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "Hell of a day." "Hell of a day," Nari agreed. Captain Taiyang walked among his soldiers, checking each one personally. They'd lost people, 17 dead, 43 wounded. Every loss hurt. But they'd saved hundreds of thousands of Kalharians. He looked at the celebrating crowds and the rising sun. "This is what we came for," he said to Nari. "This is why Earth matters." She nodded, watching a Kalharian child offer flowers to Sergeant Jiho, who accepted them with gentle hands, despite being covered in blood and grime. "The Council is going to lose their minds," she said. Taiyang smiled. "Good. Let them. Earth just proved we belong out here, and we're not going anywhere." The morning after the battle, Kolher Prime looked like 2 different worlds. The outer districts were ruins, burned buildings, cratered streets, and the bodies of Vreth warriors being collected by human cleanup crews. But the central plaza had transformed into something else entirely. Makeshift hospitals treated the wounded. Food stations fed thousands. Children played near human soldiers who handed out ration bars and showed them pictures of Earth. Administrator Alara walked through it all, trying to process everything that had happened. Her world had been dying yesterday. Today it was celebrating. And at the center of it all were the humans. She found Captain Taiyang directing a team unloading medical supplies from a cargo pod. He'd removed his armor and wore simple fatigues underneath. Without the battle gear, he looked almost ordinary, just a tired man doing a job. "Captain," she called out. He turned and nodded. "Administrator, how can I help you?" "I need to understand," she said. "Why did you come?" "Earth isn't part of the Galactic Council. We never sent you a distress call directly. How did you even know we needed help?" Taiyang gestured to a quieter corner of the plaza. They sat on the remains of a fountain that had been beautiful once. "We've been monitoring this sector for 3 years," he said. "Every communication, every petition, every cry for help. We saw all 17 of your requests to the Council. We saw every rejection. But why? What does Earth care about a mining colony on the edge of civilized space? Taiyang pulled out a small device and projected an image into the air, a blue and green planet with white clouds, Earth. Do you know what the Council calls my world? He asked. A death world. They say our gravity is too strong, our weather too violent, our diseases too deadly. They quarantined us, said we were too dangerous for contact with civilized species. I've read the reports, Alara admitted. Then you know they're afraid of us. And maybe they should be. We grew up fighting everything, our own planet, our own nature, each other. War, famine, disease, extinction events, we survived it all. He looked at the image of Earth with something like love in his eyes. We learned to be hard because nothing was given to us. Everything had to be earned. A human medic walked past, carrying a Kalharian child to the hospital tent. The child was crying. The medic was singing a soft Earth song to calm them. But we also learned to protect, Taiyang continued. Because if you don't protect your own, you don't survive. Family, tribe, nation, these things matter to humans. And now that we've found others out here in the galaxy, he met her eyes. We protect them too. Before Alara could respond, a woman in a white coat approached. She was human but carried scientific instruments instead of weapons. Administrator Alara, this is Dr. Hannah. Taiyang introduced them. Our xenobiologist and cultural specialist. Hannah smiled warmly. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your world's ecosystem is fascinating. Did you know your soil composition is almost identical to a region on Earth called Dr. Taiyang interrupted gently. Maybe save the science lecture for later? Hannah laughed. Right, sorry. I get excited. Administrator, I wanted to explain something about Earth and why we're here. The captain explained the military side, but there's more to it. She sat down with them, her expression turning serious. The Council was right to be cautious about Earth, she said. We are dangerous. Our evolution created a species optimized for survival through violence when necessary. But they missed the other half of the equation. We're also optimized for cooperation, for forming bonds with others, for expanding our definition of us to include anyone we consider worthy of protection. I don't understand, Alara said. Humans will fight to the death for their pack, Hannah explained. And we're really good at deciding who's in our pack. The Council thought keeping us isolated would keep the galaxy safe. They didn't realize it would just make us more determined to help those they ignored. A commotion drew their attention. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the plaza, the official seal of the Galactic Council. Taiyang stood immediately. That was faster than I expected. The projection resolved into a figure Alara recognized Commander Daeyun of Earth Defense Command. He wore the same black uniform as Taiyang, but with more decorations. His face was stern. Captain Taiyang, this is Fleet Command. We have a situation. Sir, Taiyang snapped to attention. The Galactic Council has issued a formal censure against Earth for unauthorized military intervention in Kolher Prime. They're demanding immediate withdrawal of all forces and threatening sanctions. Daeyun's expression didn't change, but Alara caught the hint of anger in his voice. They're also threatening legal action against you personally for violating 17 different treaties. Silence fell across the plaza. The Kalharians who'd been celebrating now looked worried. Would the humans abandon them to satisfy the Council? Taiyang stood straight. Sir, with respect, the job isn't finished. The Vreth could return. These people need protection while they rebuild defenses. I request permission to establish a temporary garrison. The Council won't like that, Daeyun warned. The Council didn't like people dying either. But that didn't make them act, Taiyang replied. Sir, I'm not leaving these people defenseless to satisfy politicians who couldn't be bothered to answer 17 calls for help. A long pause. Daeyeon's face remained unreadable. Then he smiled. Damn right you're not. I've already told the Council that Earth Defense Forces will maintain a presence on Kolher Prime until local security is re-established. They can file all the complaints they want. We'll be too busy saving lives to read them. Cheers erupted from the Kolharians listening. Even some of the human soldiers grinned. However, Daeyeon continued, be aware that this has consequences. The Council is moving to formally censure Earth. Economic sanctions are likely. They may even threaten military action. Let them try, someone in the crowd shouted. Daeyeon's expression turned serious. This isn't a joke, Captain. We're changing the rules of galactic politics. There will be a price. Taeyang nodded. I understand, sir. But some things are worth paying for. Agreed. Firebase Hana is approved. I'm sending reinforcements and construction equipment. Show the galaxy what Earth can build, not just what we can destroy. The transmission ended. Alara approached Taeyang slowly. You're really staying? Did you think we'd leave? He asked. We don't abandon people who need help. That's not who we are. Lieutenant Nari joined them, her armor still scorched from yesterday's fighting. Besides, someone needs to teach you folks how to properly defend the planet. No offense, but your defensive positions were terrible. None taken, Alara said with a weak laugh. She felt tears building. Thank you. I know it sounds inadequate, but thank you. Dr. Hannah patted her shoulder. You don't need to thank us. We're neighbors now. Neighbors help each other. The Council won't see it that way, Alara warned. Taeyang looked around the plaza, at Kolharians and humans working side by side, at children laughing despite yesterday's horrors, at a future being built from the ashes of destruction. The Council had their chance to be heroes, he said quietly. They chose politics over people. Earth chooses differently. We'll face whatever consequences come from that. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. Listen up. We've got work to do. Firebase Hana begins construction at dawn tomorrow. Every Kolharian who wants to learn to defend their home is welcome. Every human here is to treat our hosts with respect and friendship. We came here to save lives. Now we stay to rebuild them. The crowd cheered again, as the sun set on Kolher Prime's second day of freedom. Alara stood with Taeyang watching the construction drones begin their work. What happens when the Council comes? She asked. Taeyang smiled. Then they'll learn what we learned a long time ago on Earth. You can't stop people who refuse to give up. 3 weeks after the battle, the Council delegation arrived. Their ship was massive, a white vessel decorated with the symbols of 24 species, designed to impress and intimidate. It settled into orbit above Kolher Prime and sent a shuttle down to the rebuilt assembly hall. Administrator Alara waited with Captain Taeyang and his senior staff. The humans looked relaxed in their dress uniforms, but Alara could see the tension in their shoulders. This meeting would determine the future of not just Kolher Prime, but potentially Earth's place in the galaxy. The Council delegates entered with ceremony. Leading them was Ambassador Thrax, a massive insectoid being whose species had been part of the Council for 10,000 years. His compound eyes swept the room with obvious distaste. Administrator Alara, he said, his translator turning his clicks and whistles into standard galactic speech. We have come to address the illegal military action that occurred on your world. Alara stood. You mean the action that saved my people from genocide? The Vreth situation was being monitored, Threx said coldly. The Council would have intervened through proper diplomatic channels. When? The question came from an elderly Kolharian man in the audience. He stood on shaking legs. My daughter sent 17 petitions. 17. Each one ignored. My grandchildren are alive today because these humans acted while you debated. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Threx raised a claw for silence. The Council maintains galactic order through careful deliberation, not rash military action. The humans violated our most sacred principles: non-interference, proportional response, and diplomatic primacy. Captain Taiyang stepped forward. His dress uniform was simple compared to Threx's ornate robes, but he carried himself with quiet authority. Ambassador, with respect, we violated no treaties because Earth never signed them. We're not part of your council. We owe you no obedience. Your world was quarantined for good reason, Threx snapped. You are violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. Dangerous to who? Lieutenant Nari asked. She stood beside Taiyang, her medals gleaming. We're dangerous to predators like the Vreth. We're dangerous to anyone who thinks the weak should be left to die. If that makes us unfit for your council, then maybe your council isn't fit for the galaxy. The room erupted. Kalharians shouted support. Other council delegates demanded order. Threx's mandibles clicked in agitation. You cannot simply ignore galactic law, he declared. We didn't ignore it, Taiyang replied calmly. We prioritize the higher law the duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The law of basic decency. Threx turned to Alara. Administrator, you must understand that accepting Earth's protection puts your world at risk. The Council provides trade agreements, technology sharing, and diplomatic protection. All of that will be withdrawn if you continue this alliance with these primitives. Alara felt the weight of every eye on her. The choice was impossible. Accept the Council's terms and lose the humans who'd saved them, or stand with Earth and face economic isolation. Before she could answer, Specialist Nure stepped forward. The young human linguist carried a datapad. Ambassador Threx, I've been studying the Vreth communications we recovered from their ships. Would you like to know what I found? That is irrelevant to these proceedings. I found proof that the Council knew the Vreth were targeting Kolar Prime. Myre interrupted. She projected data into the air for everyone to see. Encrypted transmissions between Vreth hive ships and Council monitoring stations. The Council was tracking the Vreth fleet for 3 months before they attacked. You knew exactly what was going to happen. Silence fell like a hammer. Furthermore, Myre continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. I found similar transmissions related to 4 other colony worlds over the past 5 years. Worlds the Council officially listed as lost to natural disasters or unforeseen circumstances. They were all Vreth harvesting operations, and the Council knew about every single one. The assembly hall exploded into chaos. Kalharians shouted in fury. Even some of the Council delegates looked shocked. These accusations are absurd. Threx protested. The data doesn't lie, Taiyang said quietly. He looked at the Council delegation, his expression one of deep disappointment. You didn't just ignore calls for help. You deliberately allowed the Vreth to prey on non-member worlds. Why? What did you gain from it? One of the other Council delegates, a bird-like being named Swix, spoke up. The Vreth. They agreed to limit their harvesting to fringe worlds. In exchange, they wouldn't threaten Council member states. It was a compromise. A compromise built on murder, Dr. Hana said, her usual warmth replaced by cold anger. You sacrificed innocent people to maintain your peace. Do you even hear how monstrous that sounds? Threx drew himself up. We maintained stability. Galactic civilization requires difficult choices. We cannot save everyone. You didn't even try, Nari shot back. You made a deal with monsters and justified it with politics. Taiyang walked to the center of the room. He looked at every delegate, every Kalharian, every human present. 3 weeks ago, Administrator Alara sent a final message, he said. She said they thought someone would answer, but they were wrong. She was ready to die, believing the galaxy had abandoned her people. He paused. Earth heard that message, and we decided that no one should ever have to feel that abandoned again. He activated his communicator. Broadcast this on all frequencies, all channels, every corner of this sector. The recording started. Tai Yang's voice, clear and firm, speaking words that would echo across the galaxy. This is Captain Tai Yang of the Earth Defense Forces. To every world ignored by the Council, to every colony told you don't matter, to everyone who sent a distress call that went unanswered, Earth hears you. We are establishing Firebase Hana on Kolher Prime as the first permanent human installation outside our home system. Any world that requests our protection will receive it. Any species that seeks our friendship will find it. We will not ask permission from a council that trades lives for peace. He looked directly at Threx. The council had 17 chances to prove they cared about justice. They failed 17 times. Earth doesn't need 17 chances. We only need one. The transmission ended. Threx's translator emitted sounds that were probably cursing. You've just declared yourself an outlaw state. The Council will impose sanctions, trade restrictions, travel bans. We may even authorize military action. Try it, Sergeant Jiho said from the back. See how that works out for you. Tai Yang raised a hand for calm. We don't want war with the Council. We want you to do better. Be better. Your civilization is old and wise in many ways. But somewhere along the path, you forgot that wisdom without courage is just cowardice dressed up in fancy words. He looked around the room. Any world that wants to stand with Earth, step forward now. We won't force this choice on anyone, but we'll protect those who make it. The first to step forward was Alara, then her aide, then the elderly man whose grandchildren survived. Within minutes, every Kalharian in the room stood with the humans. Threx looked at them all with something like pity. You're making a terrible mistake. Maybe, Alara said, but it's our mistake to make. And honestly, I'd rather fail standing with beings who came when we called than succeed serving a council that told us to die quietly. Swix, the bird-like delegate, ruffled their feathers. The fringe worlds have been overlooked too long. I will bring these findings to the full council. Not all of us approve of the Vreth arrangement. Threx glared at his fellow delegate. You would side with these primitives? I side with truth, Swix replied. Something we've lost sight of. The council delegation departed in disarray, their unity broken by Murray's revelations. As their shuttle lifted off, Tai Yang stood with Alara looking up at the stars. You know they'll come back, she said. With sanctions. Maybe worse. Let them, Tai Yang replied. Earth spent its whole history being told we couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't succeed. We did anyway. The Council's disapproval is just another obstacle. You really think others will join us? Tai Yang smiled. I know they will, because we just proved something the Council never wanted anyone to know. You don't need their permission to matter. You just need the courage to stand up. Above them, new ships began arriving. Not Council vessels. Independent merchants, colony transports, and ships from fringe worlds across the sector. They came to see the humans who challenged the Council. They came seeking hope. Firebase Hana's flag rose over the assembly hall, Earth's blue marble surrounded by 17 stars, one for each ignored petition. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since Captain Tai Yang's broadcast, and the galaxy was changing. Firebase Hana had grown from a temporary camp into a proper military installation. Defensive walls surrounded training grounds where Kalharians learned Earth's combat methods. A hospital treated patients from a dozen species. A school taught children both Kalharian and human subjects. Most importantly, A communications center received distress calls from across the sector, and the calls kept coming. Administrator. Alara walked through the market district that had sprung up around the base. Human soldiers browsed stalls alongside Colharian merchants. A group of children, human and alien mixed together, played a game that looked like soccer, but with 3 balls. Everywhere she looked, she saw cooperation where the council had promised only chaos. She found Colonel Taiyang on the observation deck overlooking the training grounds. He'd been promoted after 17 colonies formally requested Earth's protection. He looked older now, the weight of responsibility showing in new lines on his face. "Morning, Administrator," he greeted her. "Or is it President Alara now? I heard the vote went through." Alara smiled. "President of the Free Worlds Coalition. It still sounds strange. Yesterday, I was managing a mining operation. Today, I'm helping lead a political movement that spans 57 star systems. 59 as of this morning," Taiyang corrected. 2 more colonies voted to join. The council isn't happy. The council hasn't been happy for months. She joined him at the railing. Below, Major Nari led a mixed unit of humans and Colharians through urban combat drills. They moved well together, each species covering the other's weaknesses. "Have the sanctions hurt Earth?" "Some," Taiyang admitted. "Trade with Council worlds is restricted. We can't access some jump gates. Technology sharing agreements are cancelled." He smiled slightly. "But we're adapting. The free worlds are trading with us directly. We're building our own jump gate network. And other species are curious secretly contacting us, asking about alternatives to council membership." A loud cheer drew their attention. Sergeant Jiho had just demonstrated a hand-to-hand combat technique to a class of Colharian recruits. The big man was surprisingly gentle as he showed them the proper form, correcting stances and offering encouragement. "Your people are good teachers," Alara observed. "We've had a lot of practice teaching each other," Taiyang said. "Earth has thousands of cultures, hundreds of languages, different ways of seeing the world. We learned how to share knowledge across those divides. Turns out that skill transfers well to working with alien species." Dr. Hana approached them, carrying her ever-present datapad. She looked excited, which usually meant she'd discovered something fascinating about local biology. "Colonel President, I have news," she announced. "The cultural exchange program is exceeding all projections. We've had requests from 38 species to study on Earth. More importantly, we're learning incredible things from our new friends. The Colharian mining techniques are revolutionary. We're adapting them for asteroid operations. The Savari crystalline technology could change our communications. The Plex agricultural methods could solve food shortages on Mars. See?" Taiyang said to Alara. "This is what the Council never understood. They treated the fringe worlds as inferior. But every species has something valuable to contribute. We just had to actually listen." A priority alert sounded on Taiyang's communicator. His expression grew serious as he read the message. "What is it?" Alara asked. "Breath activity. They're massing near the Kelter system, another fringe colony outside Council protection." "How many ships?" 30, twice what they brought to Kolher Prime." Taiyang was already moving, issuing orders through his comm. "Alert all units. Prepare for deployment. Get me casualty estimates for Kelter's population." Within minutes, Firebase Hana transformed from a peaceful base into a war machine. Soldiers ran to their positions. Ships powered up. Weapons were loaded and checked. Alara watched the organized chaos with amazement. "You can reach them in time?" "We have to," Taiyang said, simply in the command center. Major Nari coordinated with Specialist Yoon in orbital command. The walls displayed tactical information ship positions, population centers, optimal deployment zones. The Kelter government sent a distress call to the council 4 days ago, Nari reported. No response. Of course not, Corporal Suji muttered. She was checking her demolition equipment, preparing for another battle. Why break their streak? Taiyang studied the display. The Vreth will hit the main colony first. That gives us 6 hours to get into position. Nari, take the first wave 200 troops in rapid deployment pods. Establish a perimeter around the population centers. Jiho, you'll follow with heavy weapons and armor. Suji, I want every approach to the colony rigged with surprises. Colonel, Specialist Myray spoke up from her station. I'm picking up other signals. Ships changing course toward Kelter. Not Vreth, not Earth either. The display updated. 7 ships, different designs, all heading toward Kelter system. Who are they? Taiyang asked. Myray smiled. Free Worlds Coalition vessels. Species we've helped over the past 6 months. They're coming to join the fight. A transmission came through. A Kalharian captain appeared on screen, one of the first recruits Nari had trained. Colonel Taiyang, this is Captain Oren of the Kalharian defense ship Unity. We heard about Kelter. We're coming to help. No one fights alone anymore, right? That's what you taught us. More transmissions followed. A Savari medical ship offering humanitarian support. A Plex cargo vessel carrying additional supplies. Even a ship from the bird-like Swix's species, declaring they couldn't officially help, but could accidentally be in the area if needed. Taiyang felt something he hadn't felt in months, hope mixed with pride. Acknowledge all vessels, he ordered. Coordinate with our fleet. Welcome to the fight. The deployment was textbook perfect. Human pods dropped first, smashing into Kelter's surface and establishing defensive positions before the Vreth even realized they weren't facing helpless civilians. The Free World ships took up positions in orbit, ready to support Dot when the Vreth fleet arrived. They found something they'd never encountered before: a united defense. Humans held the ground with their characteristic aggression. Kalharian recruits fought beside them, implementing everything they'd learned. Savari medical teams saved lives in real time. Plex engineers reinforced defensive structures. The bird-like species provided aerial reconnaissance. It wasn't just Earth fighting anymore. It was dozens of species standing together. The battle lasted 8 hours. The Vreth, expecting easy prey, instead found coordinated resistance from beings who decided that safety came from unity, not isolation. When the last Vreth ship retreated into jump space, the coalition forces had suffered casualties, but they won. Taiyang stood on Kelter's surface as the sun set, watching coalition ships orbit above. Around him, humans and aliens worked together to treat the wounded and secure the area. Major Nari approached, limping slightly from a minor injury. Hell of a thing, watching them all work together. It's what we hope for, Taiyang said. A galaxy where no one fights alone. Sergeant Jiho joined them, carrying a Kelter child who'd been separated from her family. He held her gently, speaking softly in broken Kelter until they found her parents. You know, the council will call this an act of war, Nari said. Multiple species conducting military operations without authorization. They'll say we're building an army to challenge them. Maybe we are, Taiyang replied. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to ensure that no one else has to send 17 unanswered calls for help. Ilara arrived on a shuttle from Kolher Prime. She walked through the battlefield, seeing species working together that the council had kept carefully separated for thousands of years. It's beautiful, she said when she reached Taiyang. Messy and bloody and chaotic, but beautiful. This is what civilization should look like. The council will never accept it, Taiyang warned. Then the council will have to change. Ilara smiled. Or become irrelevant. We're not asking permission anymore. We're building something better. A transmission came through from Earth Commander Dayon with important news. Colonel, I wanted you to hear this directly. The Council has officially declared Earth and the Free Worlds Coalition a rogue state. They're implementing full sanctions and... He paused. They're authorizing military action if we don't disband. How much time did they give us? Tai Yang asked. 30 days to withdraw from all non-Earth systems and dissolve the coalition. The command staff looked at each other. 30 days to abandon everything they built. To leave the Kelters and Kalharians and 57 other colonies defenseless again. Sir, your orders? Nari asked. Tai Yang looked at the coalition flag flying over the temporary command post Earth's blue marble now, surrounded by 59 stars and growing. Tell the Council we'll see them in 30 days, he said. And we're not going anywhere. Dayan smiled grimly. I'll pass that along. For what it's worth, Colonel, Earth stands with you. All of Earth. We held a vote. 97% support the coalition. We're ready to face whatever comes. The transmission ended.